Hey VC, it's Jonathan, the Cheap and Cheerful record collector, with another edition. Been out collecting records, going to Goodwills and flea markets and thrift stores, etc. Got a bunch of records. Haven't had a video for a while because I had to spend some time cleaning them, getting them ready, going through them, listening to them before I could put them out there. Got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get right into it. First thing I found, which again, all my records that I found, I'll show you here today, are $5 and under. I got one that's over, but everything else $5 and under. First record up, great Weather Report. I had this album way back in the day when it first came out, what is that, 77? And looking to get a new copy recently and found this one in Goodwill for $1. Great condition. Joe Zanelli, Wayne Shorter, great stuff. If you don't know them, one of their great albums. Also in the jazz genre, which I am a big fan of, picked up Gene Ammons' Light, Bluesy, and Moody on Mercury Wing Records. Gene Ammons plays tenor saxophone, has a great tone, sort of transitioning in from the big band era to the small post-bop and bebop era. Also found out, which I did not know, he's the son of Albert Ammons, who is the influential and great piano player, boogie-woogie piano player from the 20s and 30s. So that's a great record. Really love this one. Also at the same place, when I got that, they had the Gene Ammons Story. What's it called? The Gentle Jug. His nickname was Jug. So it's a 2-record compilation on Prestige. Nice pictures, great songs, and just a great album. I love Gene Ammons. Really wonderful. Blind Buy. Walking around, saw this one at one of the Goodwills. It was only $1, so I figured I'd give it a shot. Never heard of the guy. Guy's name is Mort G Larson. He is out of Oslo, Norway. The record was recorded in 1981, and he plays boogie-woogie, jazz, and ragtime. And man, this guy has great chops. Just wonderful record, in great condition. A couple of songs by Scott Joplin, a bunch by Jelly Roll Morton, and one by Eubie Blake. So, a great blind buy. If you love that jazz, that boogie-woogie jazz, Dixieland, just great. Ragtime, wonderful. In that same vein of Dixieland, I also saw this record, Wilbur to Paris, and his New Orleans jazz over and over again. On Atlantic. What can I say? Great stuff. Straight Dixieland out of New Orleans, not redone Dixieland out of New York or San Francisco. This is straight out of New Orleans and just really wonderful. Another blind buy I picked up. Never heard of them. Knew nothing about it. I knew one of the guys' names. That's about it. Also an old jazz album. The Jazz Wizards. This is from 1925, obviously reissue. The tracks vary in quality. Some of them sound really good. Some of them are obviously from 78s that are not in great shape. But the music itself is just wonderful. Albert Nichols, John St. Cyr, R.M. Jones, Berthy Chippy Hill, and Shirley Clay. Really old jazz, 1925, which I love. Really unpretentious, straight-up jazz. Having such a good time playing it. It's infectious. Oh, and by the way, the music that's playing right now in the background, Count Basie, April in Paris. Great record. Love that cover, but a great album. Also, part of my jazz pickups recently, David Fathead Newman. This is a demo from a radio station, WNCC. Can't remember where they were. I looked them up. I can't remember where they were from now. Straight up jazz. Good stuff. I love it. Still with that, Stanley Turrentine, West Side Highway. Another great jazz album. This is from on what label is this on? Fantasy Records. I'm going to say again, this is mid to late 70s. A little bit, little too much fusion kind of thing for me, but some great tracks on here. And next one up, Champion Jack Dupree, piano player, 1930s and 40s. This is obviously repress on archive folk music. Well, I like on the back, they have the original $1.69 sticker. That's pretty cool. I like that. Again, boogie woogie, bluesy jazz, great singing, just straight up jazz. Love it. On the bluesy side. And the last jazz album I found, the MJQ, Modern Jazz Quartet. This is a soundtrack for a movie, No Sun in Venice, scored by John Lewis. I got a lot of MJQ, Modern Jazz Quartet. One of my favorite jazz bands. So, that's that. Next record, I found this. I paid more for this than I usually do. I dug deep and dug out $7, which is, for me, a lot of money. It's called Atomic Cafe. I'd never heard of it, knew nothing about it. It turns out there was a movie made, a documentary, about the atomic age, about the coming of the atomic bomb, etc. And these are all songs that talk about that. The first side is almost all country songs and hillbilly songs. Adam and Evil. Jesus hits like an atom bomb. When they drop the atomic bomb, Atomic Sermon. Just great. Second side is more rockabilly, 50s rockabilly stuff. Uranium, 50 megatons, Satellite Baby, Atomic Cocktail. Great stuff. Everybody from, as it says on the front here, radioactive rock and roll, blues, country, and gospel. I spent $7 on this, I said, which is a lot. It's on Rounder Records, so I thought it'd be good. Actually looked it up in Discogs. It's selling for about $30, so that was a great buy, even for my $7 over the limit. Atomic Cafe. Next record I saw, again, never heard of these guys. The cover looked cool. It's called Rig, R-I-G. Turns out 1970, I want to say. 1970 psychedelic. They said it's psychedelic. First side is very much like New Riders of the Purple Sage, Grateful Dead kind of stuff. Second side gets a little more psych, but really fun. Never heard of these guys. And again, 1970 or 71, a great find. I got to dig up more on these guys. Rig, R-I-G. That's sort of fun. Next one, I've had this on CD forever and always wanted to get the vinyl of it. Elvis Costello Blue. I guess originally wanted to make a blues album, but ended up being more of a country album. But if you don't know this, I just love it. It's all covers basically, but some great stuff. A lot of fun. Recorded in Nashville, 1981. Love Elvis. Elvis actually coming to Maine, where I live, this summer. I just got tickets the other day, so I'm excited about seeing Elvis in concert. That should be fun. Outdoor summer concert. Then I got a bunch of country albums. Not new country, basically more old country. First one I picked up, I knew the name, so I figured I pretty much knew what it was, but I haven't heard it. It's Luke the Drifter Jr. All right, Hank Williams Sr., the real Hank Williams, used to record on the Luke the Drifter when he did his religious songs. This is Hank Williams Jr., obviously, doing Luke the Drifter Jr., also doing religious type songs. I guess it's before Hank Williams Jr. had his accident, before he grew his beard, started wearing dark glasses, the big hat, the whole bit. This is a little bit earlier. Actually, it's really good. I was a little hesitant, but I liked it. Good stuff. Can't find a date on it. I was going to give you the date. Can't find a date on it off the top of my head, but MGM Records, Luke the Drifter Jr. That was really cool. Another country album I picked up. Again, I knew the name, but didn't know this particular record. David Allan Coe. I guess he's part of that alt country, outlaw country group of people. Musicians kind of thing. A lot of people don't know him, but everybody from Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, all those people know David Allan Coe. This is a compilation which I really liked. Has a lot of good stuff on it. Yeah. Good stuff. Next one, still in that country vein. This is more bluegrass. This is, pick this up, Bill Monroe. It's called Bluegrass Memories. Bill Monroe, one of the first guys to actually invent or create bluegrass music. In his original band, he had two guys, Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs. They played for him originally. This is a later album, but still really nice. If you like that bluegrassy thing, this is the real deal. Also saw this, picked this up, didn't know what it was. I mean, I knew what it was, but I didn't know this particular recording. Buck Owens, America. It's on a weird label called Audio Fidelity on Country Fidelity. On Audio Fidelity. Couldn't find anything on it anywhere. When I finally listened to it, it's really not a good recording. And it doesn't sound like the Bakersfield sound that we all know Buck Owens. A little bit more straight up country. And the recording is not so good. But for a buck, sort of fun to have in the collection. Next I got some folk music. Very 60s. Mimi and Richard Farina. This is Celebrations for a Gray Day. If you don't know them, Mimi Farina is Joan Baez's sister. And Richard Farina was a singer, songwriter, author, etc. They hung out with Bob Dylan and Joan Baez early on. The album is very folk, 60s, guitar and dulcimer. Sad story about Richard Farina. He wrote a book called Been Down So Long Looked Like Up to Me. And the week they had the book was published, about 3 days later there was a signing party where he signed copies of the book. And at the end of the signing party in 1966, he got on a motorcycle with a friend who was driving, and they drove off, and there was an accident, and Richard Farina was killed. He was 27, 28 years old. That was in the spring of 1966. And then that summer, Bob Dylan had his motorcycle accident where he was almost killed also. So Mimi and Richard Farina put out a couple of albums, 2 albums. I was really happy to find this. It's on the original Vanguard label, so that was really cool. A great find. Love this record. Really great. Another folk album, also from the 60s. Picked this up, Fred Neil. Bleecker and McDougal, which was the 2 streets in Greenwich Village where all the folk clubs were back in the 60s. Fred Neil wrote Everybody's Talking, the Harry Nilsson hit that everybody knows from Midnight Cowboy. He was one of these guys who never liked to perform, had a lot of stage fright, stayed in the business for a couple of years, wrote a lot of songs that people know, and then just dropped out of the business altogether and went into environmental work. But really great early 60s folk album. And John Sebastian plays harmonica on this, which is sort of cool. That was a great find. Also on Elektra. Another folk album. This guy is from Maine here, from Blue Hill, Maine. Name is David Mallet. Straight up folk. Real nice album. Really nice. Great voice. And the nice thing is it is signed. That was sort of a cool find for a buck. A signed copy of the album. 1978. He's a local boy, so that's sort of fun to have. I don't do a lot of soundtracks. Now and then, but not often. But I couldn't resist when I saw the soundtrack. I don't have this. Woody Allen's Manhattan,